Happy Christmas, happy Boxing Day, and so close to a Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, it's time for Bleach, 1,000 Year Blood War Arc, episode 13, the final episode of 2022, by your host from the most Griever, as always, review. So, this was a great episode to end off on. We all assumed that this is sort of how we were going to end off on it, but pacing-wise, this has been flawless. I talked about this in the last review and stuff about pacing and how different animes choose to do this whole weekly, non-weekly. They try to catch up with the manga. They try to slow down to the manga and stuff. But right now, we're seeing the fact of the matter is that if people didn't care about the almighty dollar so much, which is never going to happen, or yen in this case, they would hold off on making animes of popular mangas. They would hold off and wait until there was a substantial amount, and then they would do it yearly. One season, 20 to 25 episodes, season 1, done. And if there wasn't enough content yet, then you push it 15 months, 18 months until you make season 2. It's very, very simple to make a great anime out of a great manga. Bad adaptations happen because of filler, both good and bad, and pacing, trying to slow down or speed up due to manga chapters. That's the reason. That's the simplest remark. But here, these last 2 episodes have been fire. And the fact of the matter is, if we are going to start 2023 correctly, and regardless of Ash Ketchum retiring, that's just goddamn stupid. But if we're actually going to start it right, then ending off on a great season, 13 great episodes of the final arc of Bleach. Well, I say final because we all know. But then this is the way to do it. Episode 13 was just as good as any of the episodes prior. Any of them. Because we get the Asauchi thing. It's mostly an Ichigo focused thing. We get this middle part of the episode where we're cleaning up Volume 60, right? Volume 60, which is, of course, right here. One of everybody's favorite volumes is Volume 60. And we clear up a few things. We clear up Hitsugaya. Hitsugaya deciding that, once again, he's humble enough to know that even though he's a prodigy, he was refining his Bankai the entire time skip, so to speak. Ever since the battle with Aizen, he focused solely on Bankai training, making his Bankai far better. But now he's lost his Bankai. He knows, yes, I'm powerful, high spiritual pressure, great, got an early Bankai, all that stuff. But he goes to a swordmaster and to the school. I believe it's the Squad 10 barracks. I'm not 100% where he went for this. It might have been Squad 11. I have no idea where he is. But he goes to one of the training schools for Zangetsu, which is, of course, swordsmanship, and says, hey, start me from scratch again. I've got to improve my swordsmanship. Where I've lost my Bankai, I really need to be able to up. If your stats, if it's an RPG and your stat screen, it's like, well, I'm really high in intelligence, but my intelligence skill is being nullified right now. Well, I better make my dexterity, my strength, my charisma, and everything else. I better up those categories while I have the time because, that's all I can do. There's no point in increasing intelligence anymore while it's been, status locked, so to speak, So it's very humbling and it's very smart. Kensei takes Hisagi into the woods and has him train against, of course, his former lieutenant, who, by the way, once again, using her hollow mask. Shinji, Rose, Kensei, why aren't you fucking using your hollow mask, bitches? Jesus Christ, I can't stand that. I really can't. Because if she's using it, why isn't everybody else? We know it does a buff. It's like going Super Saiyan. It's a buff. It's a buff in all physical capabilities and stuff. We know it from just watching. Look, Ichigo and Bankai can't hold a candle to Grimmjow when they first fight. Hollow Mask Ichigo can fucking fight Grimmjow. We know it. All it does is increase your power. We know it all, across the board. All stats go boom, 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 boom. So why they aren't using it? A lot of people argued, well, it was a promise. A lot of headcanon goes around with that one. A lot of headcanon. But at the end of the day, there's no good reason, and I hope we actually see them use it. Even if they still lose their fights. Even if they win their fights. Regardless of how they're going to change things in the anime going forward, please show them using their hollow mask. Or at least show them At least show them having a meaning, because I can understand what is her name? It begins with an M. I always forget how to pronounce it. But the super lieutenant, Kensei's lieutenant, I can see her not agreeing to this or not caring. She's such a, she's out here. She's an airhead, right? But I can see Love, Shinji, Lisa, Kensei. I can see them getting together and saying, you know what? We were visors before, but now we are captains of Soul Reapers again. And as captains of the Gotei 13, it is our duty to be a symbol of the Gotei 13, to be a symbol of pride. A lot of people's headcanon is Yamamoto said basically don't use it. But he's dead. And the Cerete's under attack. I don't give a fuck. If you have a nuke, you use it. When all else fails, hit the goddamn red button, right? Like, you don't sit on a missile that could save you and then just never use it when everything's going to shit, So a lot of people's headcanon. My headcanon has always been that they had a meeting about the pride, like Byakuya sort of esque. The pride of being a captain of the Gotei 13. And they were captains long before a lot of them. And they understand the pride of being a captain. And they said it would be against our honor, against our pride. I'm not saying it's not foolish, but could we at least get this scene? Could we get a scene between at least the captain, the visored captain, saying, we will never use our hollow masks again, because now we have been reinstated as captains of the Gotei 13. And as captains, we will never fight with hollow powers to protect the Soul Society. When we were visors, when we were renegades, when we were outcasts, it was different. But now we have a responsibility. As foolish as it might be, as misplaced pride, misplaced honor, misplaced responsibility, it still would at least make sense for them to have this discussion. So I'm hoping to have that. I'm hoping to have this extra scene where they explain, if they're never going to use them again, why they don't use them. Because I'm going to, spoiler alert, they never use them. They never use them again in the manga. Win or die, doesn't matter. They never use them. So we need to know why. And that was my headcanon scene, of course. Now we also get a couple other scenes. So Hisagi is training for his Bankai. Will we get to see it this time? Who knows? We also have a scene with Omaida. We have a scene with Komamura. We have a number of scenes. We have a number of good scenes here. And then we jump back to basically the rest of it is about Ichigo. So let's talk about Ichigo here. So in this, after we get all these scenes, the Toshiro stuff, the Omaida stuff, we also get one with Akon about what Mayuri is creating. Apparently Mayuri's creating something, which, once again, the mad scientist who blew up like 5 of his squad members when we first fucking met him, just for the lulz, to try to kill some Ryoka. Really? Really? Akon, you're shocked by anything this man would be doing right now? You're really that shocked? Okay. But yeah, so, I mean, kudos to Akon for actually acting surprised. Kudos. That being said, so after this, of course, we know that Ichigo goes down. The Asauchi all bend the knee. He walks in after getting his Soul Reaper badge back from Misakumi, talking to his dad and all this fun jazz. And then, he picks the right one. He picks White, of course, White of the Asauchis. And he goes forth, and Nemaya starts crafting this. And it's a beautiful scene. This is nice, long, very well paced. And talks about the fact that Zangetsu was never Zangetsu to begin with. That's your Quincy powers. What I like about this scene, is how Nemaya explains it. Makes a lot of sense. Your Soul Reaper powers, because you're such an anomaly, you're mixed blood all over the place. Your Soul Reaper powers and your Hollow powers basically started to mix together, to the point that they can't really be separate anymore. So that's why your new Zanpakuto is a Hollow. But as Nemaya explains, that doesn't make it any less a Zanpakuto, because your Hollow powers aren't hollow in the same sense. They're very unique. Your Hollow powers were created by layering Soul Reaper souls to create a Hollow. white, which is what Aizen created. That's what affected Masaki. It all starts to make sense now, doesn't it? And because of this, your Zanpakuto is basically the same method that I use to make Asauchis, confirming that Nemaya basically takes Soul Reaper souls and crafts them into swords, crafts them into Asauchis to then be honed by a Soul Reaper, and I assume the process continues. When Soul Reaper dies, Nemaya somehow has access to Soul Reaper souls of some regard, and then he goes and he harvests them, and then he crafts another Asauchi, right? That's what I'm gathering. And we don't know the full process, but that seems to be the way. Not the nicest way to be making Zanpakutos, but that's what we know. He confirms that Aizen used the same method that he uses to make white. So it would stand to reason that white could potentially be is basically an Asauchi. A hollow Asauchi, but an Asauchi nonetheless. Same method, different outcome, but now Nemaya, of course, can forge it because it's within Ichigo. Ichigo has Soul Reaper powers due to Ishin, and able to, even though they're merged, is now able to craft it properly to create a new Zangetsu for him. Then we get the whole scene, of course, that Zangetsu, old man Zangetsu, is not his Soul Reaper powers, not his hollow powers, but is his Quincy powers, his latent Quincy powers. It's Yuha Bak from, 1,000 years ago. We get this beautiful scene. Now, it's done in the pink aesthetic rather than the blue skies and all that stuff, and I think that's due to, the pink aesthetic from the opening and all that stuff. The entire opening is done with the white, black, and pink. I think that was, they're doing that on purpose for an aesthetic. And then they do the black and white with only the blue flare at the very end of the scene. They also play, of course, a great way to end the season. They, the first 13 episodes, they play number 1 again, of course. And it sounds to me like the original number 1. I'm not sure if this is the remix one. It was sort of hard to hear over all the other effects going on, and they were toning it down and stuff like that. I don't know if this is the new number 1 necessarily. I'll have to go back and rewatch it and, twist my arm to rewatch this episode, this greatness. But I'm going to have to go back and check it out again because I think it's the original number 1, or at least it didn't sound like the new one yet. But I could be wrong about that. Either way, number 1 was playing. Great way to end the episode. What I like about this is it's very sad. And it's basically the death of a mentor character. You could argue that the two mentors of Ichigo, because every shonen battle manga, of course, has a mentor character, right? Naruto has Jiraiya. Luffy has Rayleigh. Ichigo has who? You could Urahara and Zangetsu, old man Zangetsu. And by proxy, of course, Hollow Ichigo. Now, what I like about this is basically Ichigo is doing what the fans would do, because we all like old man Zangetsu. I don't know a single person who doesn't like old man Zangetsu. The fact of the matter is that Ichigo, even though Zangetsu, he ignites the blue flame sword, he says, the only thing I told you that it was a lie was my name. But I always tried to help you. I always tried to save you. I didn't want you to become a Soul Reaper. He does this beautiful speech. I'm not going to try to repeat it because I won't do it goddamn justice. Not with my nasally ass voice. And I don't have a script in front of me either. I would try, but, the fact of the matter is it's beautifully done. The aesthetic is, what a fucking scene. And what a speech. And then, of course, he starts to fade away. We get the tear in his eyes as he starts to crumble away and stuff. And Ichigo doesn't want to say goodbye. This is his mentor. This is his friend. Basically, old man Zangetsu is leaving permanently. He's gone. Now, what does this imply? Does this imply that he's fully committed to being a Soul Reaper now? He no longer is a Quincy anymore? He's going to finally relent to being basically engulfed by the Soul Reaper and Hollow powers, and now there will be no trace of Quincy left in Ichigo anymore, because that's what's been pointed out in this episode. That's what's been saving him. It's not just your Hollow, it's not just your Soul Reaper, it's been the Quincy side has also been saving you in the most subtle ways possible as well. And now it's implied that it's not happening anymore. So does this mean that Ichigo has no access to his Quincy powers anymore? Does it mean that... And it definitely means that Old Man Zangetsu is leaving. And he'll never come back. So it's basically the death of a mentor character. That's why I brought up what are the mentor characters. So it's quite sad for us, even though we didn't spend a huge amount of time. We spent much more time, of course, with Urahara. But I would argue that if anybody was a secondary mentor to Ichigo, it was Zangetsu, who we've known for a very long time, basically as long as we've known Urahara. And it is a very touching scene that Ichigo doesn't want to let him go, and that Old Man Zangetsu is willing to let him go. This is defying, because remember, the blood inside him is basically Yuha's blood, but this is Yuha from 1,000 years ago who is relenting. It's quite interesting because you have to take into account, is this Yuha from 1,000 years ago who has been moved by Ichigo? You know what I mean? Like, there's so much to imply here that Yuha is actually could have been swayed eventually. If you wish to believe that this is truly the personality and the attitude of Yuha from 1,000 years ago, and that watching Ichigo grow, he's frank. I didn't want you to become a Soul Reaper. I didn't want you in danger. I didn't want you this. I didn't want you that. But now I don't wish to fight you. I'm just happy. I was moved. Yada yada yada. And it's a beautiful fucking scene. And as he leaves, and as Ichigo cries out for him, like, I don't want you to leave. Yada yada yada. It's touching. It's beautiful. And then we of course get number one playing, and we see the double swords and all this. What I really love is Ichigo's acknowledgement, like the fan base, is that we're not ready to accept that that was not Zangetsu. That was Zangetsu to us and will always be Zangetsu to us. And Ichigo is basically the voice of the fan base right here. I can't wait to hear Johnny Young Bosch do this scene, because he's got an emotional attachment to Ichigo. It's going to come through beautifully, and he's going to say it amazingly. He goes, "You say you're not Zangetsu." Basically, he doesn't say that, but he pretty much does. He said, "No, I don't care what you tell me at this point. You are... White is Zangetsu, but so are you. You are every bit of Zangetsu to me. And that's all that fucking matters." It's sort of like the whole... You ever get those beautiful moments in many different forms of media, but it's like, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, for example, with Quinn. He might be your father boy, but he ain't your daddy. That kind of scene. Or we might not be related by blood. I might not be your birth father, but but you're still my daughter. You're my daughter at the end of the day. Those type of touching scenes. That's the same fucking thing that's going on here. Ichigo is saying, you can say whatever you want, but it doesn't matter how I feel. You are Zangetsu. You are Zangetsu to me, and that's all that matters. You are still my strength. You're still my power. We get the beautiful scene of the two swords with the different shine, the different sheen, the blue and the red as both double swords, dual Zanpakuto, both the Hollow and the Soul Reaper, and it's just like, yeah, or technically the Quincy, and it's just all culminating in this beautiful scene. It's just, let's freaking go. Let's go. This is absolutely glorious. It's fantastic. And then, of course, now we get a proper post-credit scene. Now, you guys, if you saw my last episode review, which why wouldn't you? Go click it. Go check it. I know these are late, but still. This is a proper one, not a 4-minute scene, but this is where we all thought it would end off on Uryu has joined the Vandenreich. Uryu has finally joined Yuha Bach as part of the Sternritters. Dun dun dun! So that's that part. Very exciting. Great episode to end on. We got everything I think we wanted out of this. We are finished completely with Volume 60, and now, starting off with Episode 14, we're going to be into Volume 61. Yeah, I think we're fine. I think we're doing fantastic for pacing, and I think we have plenty of room for more added shit. More added scenes. More things to go the way Kubo intended the first time, had he not, of course. We all know what happened. We don't need to rehash that stuff. But anyways... Final episode of the year. What did you guys think? What do you think of the first 13 episodes of Bleach? I might even make a video about that. Given time in 2023, I mean, I've got 6 months to make a video about it, 6-7 months to make a video. Just making an entire video, maybe a stream, maybe something, just talking about Bleach, the first season. The first part, the first 13 episodes of 1,000 Year Blood War. What do we think as a whole? Because I'm thinking 10 out of 10, as close to flawless as you could fucking get. What more do you want? Seriously. Like, Bleach the story. So even if you don't think Bleach is 10 out of 10, 1,000 Year Blood War is 10 out of 10, as an adaptation, could you have expected any more? I'm talking expectations. I'm not talking anything else. I'm saying as far as sound, animation, pacing, taking the source material and putting it on the screen, how could it have been any better? That is why I will say 10 out of 10. I have no problems. I have nitpicks, sure. But once again, they could pay off later because we've already seen multiple changes already and added scenes in the first 13 episodes. And we know that the big problems happened later in the arc. So I expect bigger changes later on in the anime. That's just me. So what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comment section down below, of course. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as always. Fourth and most importantly, don't forget to drink, but responsibly as I always do. And we will see you guys back here next time. I hope you had a great, weekend, Christmas, Boxing Day, long weekend, however you decided to celebrate with your loved ones and yourself. I hope you had a great time, and I hope you're planning a great New Year's Eve, New Year's Day party, or however you want to spend it. Do you want to just curl up with a good book in front of the fire, or do you want to go out and get drunk and do some mayhem? Whatever in between those two that you want to do, you go right ahead. It sounds like a great time. Let's start off 2023 correctly, because we're ending Bleach in 2022 with some real good excellence. So that's my spiel, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you back here in the next year for some more Bleach content. I can promise you guys that. And we'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.